Hello everyone, this is Steve from stevezanella.com. How are you today? So I'm driving into work. It's a little bit snowy. It's a little bit slick out. I wanted to pop on because I felt like I wanted to talk a little bit about panic attacks today. And I've been working on a book that I'll be sharing with everyone soon. And if anyone saw my TED Talk, my TEDx talk, I should say. There's a link in the description below. You know that I suffered from severe panic attacks for quite a while. And I talk about the first time I ever had a panic attack. I talk about it in my TEDx video and I write about it in my book. And it was during a job interview, and I started sweating and panicking and got completely lost in my head. But that wasn't the worst panic attack I ever had. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that in this video because I think it's important for people to understand. Anxiety and panic attacks, they're progressive, they build up over time. And part of what gets really scary for people is that you think you have an idea of what's happening, and you sort of get comfortable with what you've been experiencing, but as it escalates, it changes and it evolves, and it's that evolution of your anxiety and panic that continues to make it worse, because it gets unexpected, because you get so used to how you panic and you get so used to how your anxiety feels that when it jumps to that next level, the feelings change. So for me, I had suffered with panic attacks for years, so I understood the sweating. I understood the heart speeding up. I understood the feelings that I got of wanting to get up and escape. But the worst panic attack I ever had felt nothing like that. I wasn't in a work situation. I wasn't out even in a social situation. I was at my mother's house. My kids were downstairs in the playroom playing. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was there with us, and we were just visiting. Now, there was a lot going on in my life at that time. I was still embroiled in a heated legal debate in regards to my divorce and custody, and I was working 3 jobs. So I was working a full-time job at an ad agency, and then I was actually the janitor in the same agency. I would go in on weekends and clean the agency for extra money. And then I picked up a 3rd job where I was working for a janitorial service around the city that I lived in, where we were going in at night and cleaning office buildings. So I was really burning the candle at both ends. I was still drinking very heavily. My health wasn't very good. So I had a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I was exhausted. And all of those things kind of built up. And I was sitting at my mom's, and I was just sitting in a chair, and we were all talking. And all of a sudden I started to get this pain in my chest that I'd never experienced before. My chest got really tight, like it would in a panic attack, but it felt different. It felt a little bit more like pain, and my hands started to really tingle and hurt, and I got this kind of weird, tingly, uneasy feeling throughout my entire body. I got really, really dizzy. I felt nauseous, and this all came on in a wave of about a 5-minute, 10-minute span. And because I had had panic attacks before, this was completely different. And I thought I was having a heart attack. I really believed that I was having some sort of pulmonary arrest issue. My head went immediately to that worst case. And I remember thinking, I leaned over, and I was kind of had my head between my legs. I was trying to alleviate some of the dizziness. And it got a little bit foggy. My mom, I remember she asked me, what should I do? Should I call an ambulance? because of my anxiety, I never wanted to be the center of attention, so the idea of doing something like that just kind of was anxiety provoking in itself. But I was so convinced that I was actually dying that I said, yeah, you need to call an ambulance, something's wrong. And it was strange because while I was laying there with my head between my legs, with this pain in my arms and tingling and just this completely uncomfortable sensation throughout my body, thinking that I was literally having a heart attack and wondering if I was going to die. I can remember thinking that my kids were down in the basement and I didn't want them to see their father die. And I felt guilty because I thought I had failed them. And here I am going through this situation feeling like this, I could literally be dying. And I feel guilt and I feel shame and I feel sadness for the people I'm going to leave behind because I felt like I could have done more and I could have been more. So the ambulance comes, they put me on a stretcher, they wheel me out the front door of my mom's house, and they bring me to the hospital, and they're taking blood and they're checking everything, and I'm just it's a very surreal moment for me. And they bring me in and they wheel me into the emergency room and they cover me with these warm blankets and they're like, they put a monitor on me and I just remember Deanna had followed me in and she's just kind of sitting there looking very concerned, and I had no idea what was happening and what was going to happen next. And after some tests, the doctor came in and said, we think that it's just stress. We think that you're just having some anxiety. And I was embarrassed because I felt like you always hear stories about people who they say that they're having a panic attack and they feel like they're dying. And I had suffered panic attacks, and while I understood the feeling of tightness in the chest and feeling of not knowing what's going on, this was a completely new level for me. And I didn't think that would ever happen. I never thought that I would get to that level. And this was, I had already started doing some research on anxiety and panic attacks, and I had already started this process of trying to figure these things out. And I thought I was getting better, but I was addressing parts of my anxiety, but not all of my anxiety. I was still burning the candle at both ends. I wasn't sleeping very much. I was still heavily drinking. I wasn't taking care of myself mentally or physically or emotionally. I had a lot of stress and anxiety going on in my life that I wasn't sure how it was going to adjust or how things would work out with fighting for custody with my children. And it built up and it reached this point where I was laying in a hospital bed because I was stressed. And I remember, we left and that is, that moment and that experience and going through that feeling, not just of the idea that you may not make it out of this, but the experience of feeling those feelings, feeling guilty and feeling sad that you didn't accomplish more, and feeling that pain for your loved ones, that my kids were gonna be without a father, that was hard for me. And it really was a turning point in my wanting to get better, because while I thought I was doing things to get better, I had just started scratching the surface of what needed to happen. And I knew that I had to do a lot more. and that in order to do a lot more, I had to do a lot more work on myself, and I had to get myself in a position where I could do more because my children deserved it, and I deserved it. So while a lot of people talk about panic attacks, and a lot of people talk about their experiences with them, and if you have them, if you suffer from panic attacks and you have issues with anxiety and panic disorder, please understand that just because you have certain things that you've become accustomed to doesn't mean that they're going to always stay that way. They have the opportunity, they have the ability to get better, but they also have the same opportunity to get worse. And they will continue to evolve. Whether you are taking control and evolving them in a way that they start to subside and you start to feel better, or if you allow them to continue to have control, they'll continue to get worse. So I just wanted to share this with people so that they understood that if you're suffering from panic attacks and you're getting them to the severity where you feel like you're dying, you're not alone. It happens to a lot of people. Millions and millions of people struggle with anxiety and panic attacks in the same exact way, and I was one of them. And that's why I'm so committed to helping people overcome their anxiety, their fear, of fixing their lives, of changing the way that they see the world, of adjusting the way that they interact with the people around them, changing their focus, learning to be more mindful, of fixing the head, the body, and the spirit, and the soul. It's all interconnected, and you can't fix one and ignore the others because they're all intertwined, and you have to address all of them equally. So that's my story. I just wanted to share a little bit today. I hope you found it helpful. I hope if you can relate, if you know what I'm talking about, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I love it when we're able to share our stories with each other and really connect. And that's what I do on my Facebook page, The Anxiety Dharma. If you take a look under groups, search for it, come and join. It's a great group of people. We share our stories, we help, we lean on each other when we need it, and we push each other when we need it. Because the goal here isn't to just commiserate. The goal is to figure it out and get better so that we can build amazing lives for ourselves and for the people that we love. So that's it from me. I hope you guys have an amazing day today. Like I said, write down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Or shoot me an email, steve@stevezanella.com. If you're not comfortable sharing publicly, I completely understand that. That's why I make my email available to everyone. So send me an email, reach out. I always respond. So I hope you have a stress-free day. I hope you learn to manage things well today. I hope your life is full of gratitude for the things that you have. And as always, I hope you have an amazing day. I really do. And until we talk again, love you guys.